Oh yeah, John Mansell, ex-boozehound. Hope you're well. This vlog is about addiction, booze, drugs, gambling, sex, whatever you're addicted to. Those of you that know me will know that majority of my vlogs are on the subject of mental illness. I don't very often do stuff about addiction, but I guess the name ex-boozehound probably tells you everything you need to know. My last drink was on the 17th of March 2003, and the last time that I wanted to drink was probably this morning, if I'm going to be honest, which I usually am. Again, there's been a lot on the news about the effects that this COVID lockdown will be having on people with addictions, and whether it be drugs or booze or whatever. And I saw something this morning on the news, and people were talking about the isolation and the boredom and having far too much time to think. One guy said something along the lines of he wanted to quiet his mind, and I know exactly what they're talking about. I got sober in March 2003. I was very fortunate in that, because I'd worked for an insurance broker since I was 16. I had Bupa cover, and I ended up in a place called the Woodbourne Priory, and that was for a 28-day rehab. And if I'm entirely honest, which I try to be, I don't think I'd have been able to do that or stay away from the booze if I hadn't been taken out of the reality of life. 28 days away from reality allowed me the time I needed to get away from the booze, and when I went in there, I didn't think I'd be without booze for 17 years. Part of me did it to get people off me back and perhaps be seen as, doing all I could to beat the booze. And then, the plan was to just carry on drinking later on. I think in the group that I was in, there was about 7 or 8 of us, and as far as I'm aware, or from what I've heard, I'm the only person out of that group of 7 or 8 who's never gone on to drink. And people say to me, well done, you've not relapsed. They think it's amazing that I was able to do it on my first attempt. Bullshit, just because I went into the Woodbourne Priory, I went into a proper rehab. That weren't my first attempt of giving up booze. I'd tried many times before for various reasons. I'd done something stupid and I needed to show people that I could change, get people off my back. I gave up for many reasons, and I am very lucky not to have relapsed in the last 17 years. For those of you who have relapsed in this time, in this COVID-19 time, I'm not making excuses for you, and I hope you're not making excuses for yourself. The worst thing you can do now is to beat yourself up about it, because the more you beat yourself up about it, the more opportunity it gives you to carry on drinking. You'll carry on drinking because you're a failure, you're a waste of time, you're a waste of space. That's bullshit. You know, you're giving yourself reasons, and I'm not making excuses for you. However, I was what was classed as a functioning alcoholic. I call myself these days a retired alcoholic, and that quite often gets a bit of a giggle, but the reason I call myself a retired alcoholic is because being an alcoholic or an addict isn't just about giving in to your drug of choice, throwing copious amounts of booze down your neck. It's about a way of life. It's about the way we think. And even though I went to AA while I was in the clinic, and I did go to AA for a bit after, I didn't like it, and for many reasons. But I also know that AA and NA and all the other groups, they have huge power and can help you navigate a life without booze. Why don't I talk about booze very often? I think it's down to the reality. I'm 17 years away from booze, and it still affects my life negatively. It still consumes my life. It still restricts my life. I don't want people who are thinking of giving up the booze to think, well, what's the point if ex-boozehound over there, he's been sober for 17 years and still struggles with it. There is a point. There's a huge point. Yes, I struggle with it, but a friend of mine has recently been sent to prison for a horrible crime, and this crime wouldn't have happened without alcohol and drugs. He's now going to spend at least 6 years in prison. Why is it still worth it? I've been to, over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been to 4, 5, 6 funerals of people my age and younger who have basically drank or drugged themselves to death. Booze and drugs consume addicts' lives. There's nothing more important in an addict's life than their drug of choice. And I've been there, where I cared more about drinking than I did about my family. That I cared about drinking more than I did about anything, about life. It's a long time ago, I know, but it's still there. I'm still an addict. I'm still an alcoholic, a retired alcoholic. During these times of lockdown, I think I've probably got the closest I ever have to drinking. So earlier on I said that I was a functioning alcoholic, and basically what that means is you know, as well as being an alcoholic, I was able to hold down a job. I had lots of Mondays off because of weekend benders, but I was able to hold down a job. There'll be an awful lot of you out there that at the start of COVID were functioning alcoholics, and realistically, when you're a functioning alcoholic, the only time that you don't drink is when you're at work. Without work to keep you sober for 8 hours a day, a lot of you will have gone from a functioning alcoholic to a complete and utter raving alcoholic. A lot of you will have increased your intake. Now, because you've increased your intake of alcohol or drugs doesn't necessarily mean you're an addict. And even if you are an addict, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that your life has to go. I was, again, as I say, I was fortunate I had Bupa. I don't think I'd have been able to do it any other way. But I've seen many people break the chains of the addict and stay away from the booze or drugs or whatever it is, or gambling or whatever. I've seen many people do that just with, you know, the support of friends and family and maybe the NHS, and even though I'm not particularly keen on it, we've got something called Atlantic House, or whatever it's called these days, locally to us in Dudley, and they do some good work. It's not my favourite place. I think they've got a monopoly, and there's other ways of doing things. Anyway, for those of you who have relapsed, whether you've been 3 months sober, 4 years sober, 3 weeks sober before COVID went into, before we went into this lockdown, again, I'm not making excuses for you, but you've relapsed in unprecedented times, under unprecedented pressure, under unprecedented isolation and boredom, and it would have taken a Herculean effort not to relapse during this time, no matter how new to it or old to it you are. Don't beat yourself up. Again, I'm not making excuses for you, but this has been a very difficult time for many people. And if you have relapsed, just get back on the wagon. I know it sounds simple, but in theory, since my 2003 day, I haven't relapsed. And there's a danger in that. I believe that there's a lot of people out there that need to relapse to show them how easily and quickly, after just one drink, you can spiral out of control, go down and down and down. Now, there's a danger in the fact that I haven't relapsed in the last 17 years, is because I still don't know 100% that I couldn't cope with it. Over the last few weeks, I've thought about drinking an awful lot. Part of me just wants to go abroad and drink myself into a stupor. I know that's a stupid thing to say, but it's true. I've thought about it. I've genuinely thought about it. I've Googled flights, I've Googled hotels, to go out and just drink myself to death. That's obviously because the addiction is made worse by the mental health issues. So I believe that as many people have to have a relapse in order to see how well they were doing, how hard they've had to work to stay away from booze, whether it be 3 days, whether it be 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, whatever, to be able to see how quickly that one drink spirals into being consumed by it again. So whether this is your first relapse or your second or your third, maybe you needed those relapses just to see that you can't control it. While I was in the booze clinic, we did a number of the 12 steps, the AA 12 steps, and even though I can't remember the words, the one I hold on to is that I can't control it. Step 1, I can't manage my life with alcohol. Therefore, I stay away from it. And it's still difficult to this day to stay away from it, because it is life limiting. It is. Think of a life where you can't just get in from a stressful day and have a can of beer or have a glass of wine to have that immediate relaxation. It's a tough life to live. And if you have relapsed, again, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, don't beat yourself up. you will have been under very, very high amounts of pressure over the last, what, 10, 11 weeks. Don't give up. Get back. Set yourself a date to get back on the wagon and go for it, because you can do it. If I can stay away from booze, you guys can. Yes, I was very fortunate to have Booper, but if I wasn't drinking it, I was thinking about it, and I still miss it now. I'd love to have something that could relax me. I'd love to try and have a drink and see whether I can drink like a gentleman now. But again, I'm 99% sure that I would end up a fucking wreck again. These times are really difficult times. So if you have increased your intake or you've relapsed, don't beat yourself up. Just take it as part of the process of your recovery. We've all had relapses and difficulties in the past, but if you give up giving up, you're going to be one of the statistics, because eventually booze or drugs will kill you. Simple as that. And I say, I'm no whippersnapper, I'm 47, but I shouldn't have been to 5, 6, maybe 7 funerals over the last couple of years for people who have died because of drink and drugs. And if you have relapsed, then do something about it. Go back to the people that helped you before. Speak to your friends, speak to your family. It's not over. You can do it again. In all honesty, one of the major reasons I remain able not to drink is because after 17 years, I really don't think I could stop again. I'd spiral out of control. Don't let that be your life. Make it count. If you have relapsed, put it behind you. If you've been drinking too much, it is what it is. Get back to where you were before. You can do it. You've done it before. You can do it again. I know there was other stuff that I wanted to say, but you know, addiction is an illness. Addiction isn't an excuse to carry on with your drug of choice. It's an illness. Don't hide behind it being an illness. Be honest. You can do it or you can't. And I'm telling you now, if I can stay away from booze for 17 years, then you can as well. And you won't be able to do it alone. You'll need help, whether that be professional help or help of friends and family. But I promise you, the more you try, the more effort you put in, the more supportive your family and friends will be. And you can do it. And even though I do miss drinking, I do miss alcohol, I miss being able to just have that relaxance, I still know it was the right thing to do, and I still know it's the best way for me to live my life without booze. I hope this video has helped someone. If your loved one, if you're watching this and you're not the alcoholic, you're not the addict, try and get your loved one to watch it, because if I can stay away from booze, then I promise you, you can too. I'll catch you soon. Enjoy the good and ride out the bad. And again, please comment, share, like, subscribe to this video. Catch you all soon. Bye bye.